For the Popsicle Stick Bridge project, we will be using Tinkercad to construct our 3D models. If this is the first time you've ever used Tinkercad, just follow along with me to see how you would log in and start a project. So when you go to tinkercad.com, you will see a screen like this. You just want to click on sign up if you haven't done so already. If you want access to they have a gallery where there's furniture items and so on, and it could be useful for parts that you might want to use down the road. You would say create a personal account. Do not click on students join a class, just stick over in this area here. Then you create a personal account, and this is where you say I'm going to sign up with email. And you log in, you select Canada, of course. You put in your birthday and you hit next. I'm not going to go forward with this because I've already registered mine. So I'm just going to escape from here. So for me, I would click on login. I would say personal account. I click on email. I sign in. I would input my information here and I would hit next. In your circumstance, you will be putting in your student number at the school's extension.net. And then hit next. Once you're in Tinkercad, you will see a grid and a screen that looks more or less like this. My grid won't look the same as yours because I've been using it in the past, so my settings will differ. But you'll see something somewhat similar to this. You'll have your view cube on the left, your navigation pane along the side here, and your shapes and so on the right. I will go into more detail with this as we proceed. To begin, you want to click on settings and make sure you have the correct values. We will be working in millimeters for the purpose of this project. So just click on the down arrow, select millimeters, and then change your size. I have it maxed to the maximum size grid that's available. I just like to work with a larger size because as I'm working, I'll have a variety of objects or shapes that I started and finished, or I'm shifting things around, and I like to have a bigger space to work within. So I recommend just keeping the same values that I have here, and then you say close settings. So it'll look like a lot of really tiny squares. You don't have to have a grid this size, that's up to you, it's your preference. But if you look at the requirements for this project, it does say that your bridge will be 550 millimeters in length, and the height will not exceed 110 millimeters. The width, the minimum width is 70 millimeters. So you have some values that you're working with here. So when you're selecting your shapes on the side, just keep that in mind. Now, if we reference an image of a popsicle stick bridge that was our original inspiration for this piece, we can see, for instance, using this as an example, that it's composed of several triangular shapes. So you might be wondering how you would construct that in Tinkercad. If you look on the side here, there are some basic shapes that you can select from as a basis point. So I'm liking this triangular shape here. So I'm going to grab that. And what I want to do is create a shape similar to this on the end here. So I'm going to take this, put it on my grid. Now, what you want to do is zoom in with your mouse. If you have a mouse with a scroll ball, you just move the scroll ball to zoom in. If you're on a keyboard with a touchpad, you can use your fingers to zoom in. It's not like the Adobe Suite products where you can use keyboard shortcuts to zoom in per se. So it's best to have a mouse available for this. If you want to rotate your view, you can move the view cube on the side here. You can hold down Control and move your mouse as well. If you have a mouse and you click down on the left mouse button, you can also do that. It's actually way easier to use a mouse than it is to try to hold down a key and use your touchpad and so on. So try to get hold of a mouse to do this. If we refer back to the drawing that we're referencing, so let's just open that up. You can see that the triangular shapes are actually upside down. So if we go back to Tinkercad, we're going to want to rotate it. As you can see, there are these little arrows, and they're going to allow you to turn it left, right, or upside down, and so forth. So let's click on this one and set it to 180 degrees. So now it's upside down, and you can either rotate your view, so it's like this, or you can actually physically rotate your triangle. It depends how you want to work. Okay, now that I have it the shape I want, there are certain size requirements that I might need. If it's not coming up automatically, just click on the ruler and you'll see the size for your triangle. Now we're going to have to do some math to determine how many triangles we will need and what the width and height of these triangles will be. So we know that our bridge should be 500 and, let's bring this up, 550 millimeters in length. And the overhang, which is these pieces right here, should not be longer than 25 millimeters on each side. So if you took 550 and you subtract 50, which is 25 millimeters on this side, plus 25 millimeters on that side, you have 50. So you have 500 between here and here. You can see that there are 4 triangles along the top and 3 that fill in those gaps beneath those triangles. So in essence, if you were to count them, there's 7 triangles in total. I like the idea of showing you how to construct 7 triangles, but I'm not going to build this whole bridge for you. I'm just going to build the top parts. I want you to do the rest on your own. So I'm going to make this a little more complex for the sake of going through some steps. And I'm going to run 7 across, not just 4, but 7. So 500 divided by 7. So each triangle should be approximately 71 millimeters in length. So let's size that to 71. Okay, and then our height. Well, let's look back at this. So our height should not exceed 110. Now, we might need to do some alterations because we haven't yet figured out what the depth is of our popsicle sticks once they're glued together. But for now, we'll pretend it's just a simple fine line. So if that's 110 in height, we would put 110 here. We can conclude if this was the popsicle stick on the side, it's about 9.5 millimeters in height. So perhaps we take 110, and we subtract 9.5 on the bottom, and then we subtract 9.5 on the top. So let's try 91. Okay, so we have our triangle. We don't really know what the depth is at this time. If I'm going to say the 20 is a bit thick, so let's just temporarily put in, I don't know, 10, and we'll leave it at that for now. Okay, so what I want to do is knock out the center of it. So I'm going to copy this shape. So if you go up to here, you've got these different icons, and if you hover over it, it says duplicate and repeat. So Control D. If I were to move this, you would see that there's 2 copies now. You can turn this one into something called a hole, and that allows you to put a hole in your shape. But right now, if you were to do it, you would delete your shape because it's the exact same size. So at this point, you would need to know what the depth is of your popsicle sticks. If the popsicle stick is running face out along this edge, then you would simply deduct 9.5 from 91. So you'd have 81.5. So that would be your new height there. But then you also have to account for the fact that it's coming up a bit as well. So this measurement here might need to be raised by 9.5. And then we would, let's go to the front view here. You would want to modify this, subtract another 9.5 from it. Okay, so this should be closer to 72. Now, if I were to rotate this around, you'd start to see that it's looking a little bit better. But now we need to modify the width as well. So 9.5 times 2 is 19. We're going to subtract that from 71. So this is 52. Now, as you can see, the alignment is incorrect. So we're going to select, hold Shift on your keyboard and select your second shape. And then you're going to see some options that open up along the top here. If you hover over here, that says Group. And if you hover over here, it says Align. So we're going to click on that. You're going to see these black levers. And they allow you to adjust based on the side. So if you wanted to align on the left, you would click there. If you wanted to align it in the center, you click here. It's giving us a bit of a challenge. It should allow us to align in the center, and for whatever reason, it's not. But I think what's happening is because it is a triangle, it's throwing off the alignment function in Tinkercad. If I click on this, it's simply grayed out. It doesn't know how to center this. And that's a bit peculiar, but so be it. One thing you can do is you can put it into perspective view. Hold on, let's go front. Perspective view so that you can perfectly see what you're doing, and then use this little black arrow allows you to lift, so just simply eyeball it as best as possible, and I think that'll give you a pretty accurate center point to work with. So let's go back to flat view here. And now we have something we can work with. Now when you select both objects, drag your mouse over both and you say group. It puts a hole into your triangle. Now, you don't have to do this over and over and over again. You can simply copy and duplicate. So hold Shift to move it over. And by holding Shift, it makes it so that the triangle doesn't jump all over your grid and it stays in a horizontal line. See how it's stayed in that same visual plane? Okay, and now we'll repeat. We have 7. And if you want this to go really fast, you would copy all of them once you have your alignment and bring it over here. Every so often, just rotate your view cube just so that you can make sure that you have your joins aligned correctly and they're not overlapping. And then just zoom out. You can see what you're doing here. Okay. Now, let's go back to our image here. We have our one side constructed. We're going to work on the other side. The beautiful thing is you don't have to redo this. You would simply copy, repeat, and pull it over the correct width, the correct distance. I can demonstrate how we duplicate and move this over. So if I look at the spec sheet, it says that you will not exceed 110 millimeters in width. So let's make it 100 just to keep things simple. So I'm going to select this and duplicate it and just shift it over to the side. Now what I want to do is view it from, not the back, let's go here, the left, okay? And then put it in this view. Now as you can see here, there's a distance of 106. If I put in 100, oh, hold on 1 second, just jump to the other side. We want minus 100. There we go. Now we have our distance of 100 between these two sides. So we can get out of orthographic view, go back to perspective, and now you have your two sides. So if we look at the design that we're emulating, you can see that there are these overhang pieces and crossbars, as well as crossbars along the bottom. So once again, if I were to look at this, it looks like it's just a single popsicle stick, and the width of that is 9.5 millimeters. So we would take a box, and once again, to get the placement, you probably want to take what you've built and divide by 4. You might be thinking, because there's 3 cross pieces, that you divide by 3. But in actual fact, you wouldn't do that. I'm just going to show you why. So let's go into this view. Let's go to top. If you divided by 3, you would have 1, 2, 3. It would shift the values over so that you would have these 2, but the third one would be off on the edge. So it's taking this measurement in, let's say it's just over 100, 106 or something, it would come into about here, and then the next piece in 3 sections. You actually want 4, because if you have 4, you have 1, then you have your first cross piece, 2, second cross piece, 3, third cross piece. They're all centered nicely, and then of course you don't put that 4th one in. So you have your 3 centered cross pieces. So that's what we're going to do. Let me get out of this view. Okay, so 426 divided by 4 is 106.5. So let's go into top view, switch to here, and draw a box that we'll use as our guide. So this is 106.5. And it doesn't matter what the width is, it's simply a guide. And just make sure it's at the very end here. Okay, now we'll create our first cross piece. So this would be about 9.5, and they are 100 apart, but that doesn't account for the size of the edges. So it might be that one overlaps. Yeah, I thought that might happen. Yeah, so it's 100 to that edge as opposed to 100 from the interior. So we might need to shift this over so that we get a true 100. But for now, let's just put this here. And let's copy and repeat. Here, let me just shift this a bit so I can see what I'm doing. We actually have to move this first. If you find that the color is confusing, change this so that there's some contrast. You may notice that I'm putting the crossbars in the center of this as opposed to on the edge, just to make sure it is evenly in the space. So it's going over the line evenly on both sides. Okay, so this comes over here, once again, on both sides. Bring that down the middle. If it was a single line and it didn't have this width, then you could line it up to the edge of the box, but because it has a defined width, you would even out that size on each side of the invisible line running there. So let's bring this over here. Okay, as you can see, those are 3 evenly spaced crossbars. Let's get out of orthographic view and rotate. As you can see, these are too low. We need to lift them. I'm going to select, hold shift, and then go into this view, left and lift. So I can be as precise as possible. Okay. And it's probably a good idea, we'll exit out of here to move this over as well. Now remember, these haven't been grouped, so you would hold shift, select them, and group. That way you can just move it as one object, one shape. Go back into this view, left, and hold shift as you're dragging it so that you don't go up and down accidentally. Okay, and we can exit. So it's coming along quite nicely. Realistically, this depth, oh, I forgot to change the depth actually. This should only be the depth of a popsicle stick. I don't have that measurement on me at the moment, so we'll just make a guess as to what that might be. Once again, I'll hold Shift, Shift, Shift to grab all three. Go into left view, and let's shrink this size, make this, I don't know, 2 millimeters. They're quite thin. And then lift it up with the black arrow. Okay, we'll exit out of there. And that's more realistic to what yours will look like once it's built. You're going to repeat this process on the bottom. So if we go back to preview, you can see there are 2 on the bottom. So you follow the exact same process I just did, but of course they sit at the base. And then we'll need to attach pieces that overhang. If you look at your spec sheet, it says that they do not exceed 25 millimeters past this point that you see right here. So that would be 25 at the most on each side. I will let you complete that on your own as opposed to doing every step for you. I want you to think about it and how that might look and how you might complete that final step. The other thing you might want to do at the end, once you're done building your bridge, is just to group all the objects together in case you need to move it when you're rotating the screen. So let's take our mouse, select all parts, and go to group. And you're going to see something interesting happen. All the colors become the same when it's grouped. So you can either keep it in that fashion, or if you select multicolor, you retain the original color scheme that you had. Now, if I click off and then I select this, the entire bridge moves. Now that you've completed your bridge, I have not, but you will, you would return back to orthographic view to reference when you're drawing your drawings on the provided sheet of paper that I will be giving you. So you want to have a front side view, front view, and top view.